I'm Bobby. Sitting at the same kitchen counter where I first saw that dreaded red line on my banking app, I'm holding my grandfather's watch in my hand. It's still running 2 minutes slow, just like it always has. The rhythmic ticking is a constant reminder of the truth that lies beneath the surface, a truth that my own family tried so hard to bury. It all started on a Wednesday morning at 5:47. I was standing here, phone in one hand and a cold cup of coffee in the other. When I opened the banking app out of habit, a red line appeared across the screen. Access denied. The $520,000 in my grandfather's trust was frozen overnight. I called my mother right away. My father, Arthur, took the phone. He spoke to me in a soft, almost soothing voice, saying they had to step in because family came first. My mother, Evelyn, chimed in from behind him, saying I wasn't thinking clearly and that they should manage the money for me. I didn't argue. I just put on my blazer and drove to the bank. Let me take you back a bit. I live alone in a small house on the outskirts of a town called Millfield. I'm a forensic accountant, a job that most people find boring at parties. I spend my days uncovering the hidden numbers that others try to hide. Companies hire me when money goes missing, and families call on me when an elderly relative's savings start to disappear too quickly. My family never really understood what I did. They thought I just made spreadsheets. My mother once told a neighbor that I worked in billing, and I never bothered to correct her. I let them think I was the one who was bad with money, and I did that for years. The money in the trust came from my grandfather, Henry. He was a hard-working man who owned a small vineyard on the edge of town. He grew grapes and made his own wine. When his health started to fail, he sold the vineyard. Instead of splitting the money among his children, he put most of it into a trust at Millfield County Bank and named me as the beneficiary. People in my family thought it was because I was his favorite. The truth is, I was the one who was there for him. When he got sick, I drove him to his doctor's appointments, learned about his medications, and stayed by his side during his last few days. The others sent flowers. I have a habit of keeping copies of everything, a trait that comes from my work. So, in my desk at home, there's a folder with every paper Henry ever signed, every statement, and every letter. I never thought I'd need it. I just thought I was being organized. 2 weeks before he died, Henry gave me his watch. It's a beautiful silver pocket watch, heavier than it looks, with a small scratch on the face from a fall it took long before I was born. It runs 2 minutes slow, and I used to think it was a flaw. One day, I took it to a jeweler to get it fixed, but Henry found out and just laughed. He told me to leave it be, saying a slow clock is still honest. I didn't understand him then, but I do now. A few weeks before the red line appeared, my family seemed normal. My parents' house always smells like cinnamon and old books. My mother has kept it that way for as long as I can remember. One Sunday, we had dinner as usual. My mother, Evelyn, is a very opinionated woman. During dinner, she started talking about how my father, Arthur, always favored Henry's will. I said nothing. I noticed a stack of mail by my father's elbow, and the top envelope had the logo of a bank on it. But I didn't think much of it at the time. The following Tuesday, my sister, Stella, came to my office. Stella is 5 years older than me and works at a real estate firm in the next town. She brought me coffee, knowing I don't drink it. She asked about my work and then casually asked which bank the trust was at. She also asked if I had anyone named on the account as a backup. I said no, and she suggested I should fix that, saying she knew a notary named Frank who was good and wouldn't charge family. I said I'd think about it. After she left, I realized that the whole conversation was about access to the trust. I made a mental note to lock down my account settings and change my passwords, but then a big case landed on my desk, and I got busy. I told myself I'd handle the account on the weekend. Back to that Wednesday morning. After getting the news about the frozen account, I drove to the bank. The branch manager, Linda, has worked there for years and remembered opening Henry's accounts. I showed her my ID and told her my account was frozen. She started typing and then showed me a document on her monitor. It was a power of attorney with my name at the top, giving my father authority over my accounts. There was a signature at the bottom that was supposed to be mine, dated 3 weeks ago, with a notary stamp from Frank. I didn't immediately say it was forged. I've learned in my line of work never to make an accusation without proof. Linda clicked into the file's properties, and her face went still. She didn't say much, but I could tell that the file's history didn't match the date on the face of the document. She explained that the power of attorney had been submitted to the bank 4 days ago, along with a request to restrict my access and transfer management of the trust to my father. The file itself was created 4 days ago, but the date on the document said 3 weeks. She also pointed out that the signature looked too even. Real signatures have variations, but this one was steady, like it had been traced. I told her what I do for a living, and she looked at me differently. She said the account would stay frozen as part of a fraud review. She printed a copy of the document for me, and I put it in my blazer pocket next to the watch. When I got home, I went to my desk and pulled out the folder with Henry's papers. I laid the forged power of attorney next to them and compared my signatures. I realized that Stella had asked to borrow a stack of family papers a few months ago to scan for a family album that was never mentioned again. One of those papers had my signature on it, which was easy to trace. I did the logical thing. I called Linda back and filed a formal report with the bank's fraud unit. Then I called Henry's lawyer, Mr. Thompson. He remembered me right away. I read him the power of attorney over the phone, and he made a worried sound. He said a forged power of attorney is void, and even a valid one couldn't change the beneficiary of the trust. That evening, Stella called. Her voice was full of false concern. She said Mom was really worried about me and that they just wanted to help me manage the money. She said it would be easier if I let them handle it. Then, she slipped up and said the paperwork was already filed. That's when I knew she was in on it. I started thinking about what Henry had said about the slow clock. I knew that somewhere in the document, there was a timestamp that couldn't be changed. I decided to be quiet and let the facts speak for themselves. A few days later, my aunt, Clara, called. She was very gentle, saying that Mom was so worried about me and that everyone understood I was going through a tough time since Henry passed. I could tell that Mom had been spreading a story about me being obsessed with the money and not thinking clearly. I didn't defend myself. Instead, I asked her if Mom had said all this before or after the bank account was frozen. She paused, and I could tell she was starting to think. I did some digging and found out that my father had taken out a business loan a few years ago to keep his small printing shop afloat. The business didn't make it, but the loan remained. There was a lien on my parents' house, and the lender was starting the process to collect the debt. The amount he owed was close to the amount in the trust. I understood then why they were so desperate. My mother then called and invited the whole family for Sunday dinner, saying we should sit down like adults and talk things through. I knew it was a setup. She wanted to gather an audience and make me look like the one who needed managing. I decided to go. I spent the week preparing, just like I do before a big case. I made a copy of the file's properties and put it in my pocket next to the watch. On Sunday, I walked into my parents' house. It smelled like cinnamon and pot roast, just like every Sunday. The good plates were out, and everyone was there. After dinner, my mother started her speech, talking about how much they loved me and how I was struggling since Henry's death. Then, Stella took out a stack of papers and put them in front of me, saying it was for my own good. I didn't pick up the pen. I calmly said that before I signed anything, everyone at the table should know what the bank already knew. I explained about the power of attorney, how it was dated 3 weeks ago but created 4 days ago, and how it was notarized by Frank. I looked at Stella when I mentioned Frank's name. My mother's composure cracked. She started saying that I was not thinking clearly, but this time, her words didn't have the same effect. My father looked down, and Stella went pale. My brother, Jake, who had always tried to stay out of family disputes, started to see the truth. The dinner broke up in chaos. Everyone started calling each other, and I drove home in the dark. I didn't answer my phone. I knew they were trying to come up with a new plan. Sure enough, by the end of the week, the family was being told that I had set up the power of attorney myself for some tax scheme. Stella had managed to get Frank to back up the story. I felt like the ground was slipping beneath me. Then, my boss, Miss Harris, called me into her office. Someone had sent an anonymous complaint to the firm, saying that I was using my position as a forensic accountant to harass my family. Ms. Harris said she wasn't accusing me, but because of the perception, I needed to step back from anything related to my family's matter. Jake asked to meet me at a diner. He looked terrible. I showed him the file's properties, and he read it twice. He finally said that if the date was real, then someone in the family was lying. He kept the paper, and I knew he was starting to side with me. The bank's fraud investigator, Mr. Davis, called me the following Monday. He said that Frank had produced his journal, which showed that I had signed the document 3 weeks ago. He said it was now my word against Frank's and my family's. I felt so helpless that night. But then, I remembered Henry's words. I knew that Frank couldn't change the real creation time of the file in the bank system, and I also thought about his notary commission. I did some research and found out that Frank's commission had expired a few months ago. The date on the power of attorney was after the expiration. I called Mr. Thompson and told him it was time to put everyone in one room. We gathered in Mr. Thompson's office. My parents, Stella, Frank, and Jake were all there. I laid out all the evidence on the table, the file's properties, the proof of Frank's expired commission, and the comparison of my real and forged signatures. Frank broke down and admitted that Stella had asked him to notarize the document, saying it was just family paperwork. Stella's face went white, and my father put his head in his hands, saying he was going to lose the house. Mr. Davis said that based on the evidence, the bank would lift the restriction on my account, and the matter would be referred to the prosecutor's office. Mr. Thompson explained to the family that the power of attorney was void, and the money in the trust was always mine. In the weeks that followed, the bank lifted the freeze, and the money was back under my name. The prosecutor's office opened a review, but no one went to prison right away. Stella was put on leave from her job, and my parents still had their debt. Jake calls me on Sundays now, and we just watch a game and enjoy the quiet. My mother called me a month later. She didn't apologize. She said I never thought about the family and only cared about myself. I told her that I thought about the family the whole time, which is why I let the truth come out. I said I loved her, but I also said goodbye. As I sit here, winding the watch, I realize that the world is full of people who will lie and manipulate to get what they want. But just like this slow clock, the truth will always be there, steady and honest.